You're watching a replay of Brain Drain with Rich Cabaceres. For more videos just like this, hit that red subscribe button.
Good morning. You know, if you're listening anywhere in Massachusetts, anywhere in the country, how are you doing this morning? You know, if you're a student at BMC Durfee High School, if you're a teacher at BMC Durfee High School, hopefully after the school closure today, you're taking some solace and listening to Brain Drain on 1480 WSAR. That's right, the legendary 1480 WSAR. We're going to be talking about some very controversial topics today. Like we always do, you can call in and join the conversation at 508-673-1480. You can join the conversation by going to the Facebook live feed, by going to the Brain Drain with Rich Cabaceres Facebook page. And you know what? I'm paying attention. So send me your comments, and we'll talk about it here on the air. So recently, or as recent as a couple of days ago or weeks ago, Attorney General Jeff Sessions decided that they wanted to roll back on the DACA Act. So basically, this is something that Barack Obama put in place to allow kids who came to this country who, let's see, they're undocumented or illegal, depending on what side you're on of this argument. They're undocumented or illegal, and it gives them the ability to defer their, let's say, deportation. So it allows them to stay in the country if they are under 16 years old. They've been here for at least 5 years. They're under the age of 31. They're not convicted of a felony or 3 misdemeanors or a significant misdemeanor. They're currently in school. They're a high school graduate, have a GED, or served in the military. So these folks would be protected under this act, and now the Trump administration is deciding to phase that out. But you know what? Just recently, a federal judge who's in San Francisco just blocked that. Judge William Alsup decided that, you know, it's okay to say that you want to do away with it, but people who are currently inside of the protection of this plan, you can't stop them from renewing it, because Jeff Sessions doesn't only want to stop new applicants, but he wants to stop renewals of people who are currently under the plan. Well, that's been blocked by Judge William Alsup, and, you know, how do you feel about that? Do you think that that's something that's good? Do you think that that's something that isn't good? But he's saying you can't stop renewals because people would suffer irreparable harm. Apparently my English isn't working for me today. Irreparable harm if Trump ends DACA. And for your own edification, you hear words like dreamers and you hear words like DACA, and you don't know what those things mean because the government and mainstream media likes to use acronyms but doesn't really describe what they are. So, DREAMers is an acronym for Development, Relief, and Education for Alien Minors. And DACA is the act. It's Deferred Action for Childhood Arrivals. So really, this is protecting children. Now, I want to make sure that you have the opportunity to talk about the issues that you feel firmly about. And you know one of those issues? Immigration. So whether you're on one side or the other, you think that people who are illegal or undocumented shouldn't be here, or if you feel that people who are illegal or undocumented should have access to the freedoms of being an American, I want to hear your opinion because it's important. So, you know, we talked about what DREAMers are. DREAMers, again, are development, relief, and education for alien minors. And we also talked about what DACA is, which is being rolled back by the Trump administration, and that is Deferred Action for Childhood Arrivals. So now we have these DREAMers who arrived here under 16 years old. There's about 690,000 people who are going to be affected by this. They've been here for at least 5 years. They're under age 31. They've not been convicted of a felony. They haven't been convicted of multiple misdemeanors or a significant misdemeanor. They're currently in high school, or they have a high school GED, or they served in the military. And that's interesting to me because as a veteran, people can come here, serve in the military, not be a documented immigrant, and can be deported after serving in the military if this goes away. Think about that for a second. That's scary. So in 2012, there were some statistics around this. Nearly half of the people who were protected under this act lived in either California or Texas. 71% of them in 2012 are Mexican, 14% in 2012 are from North and Central America, and then the other 15% makes up the rest of the world. Asia, South America, Europe, Africa, and multiple people all over the world are protected by this because they came here for some type of status. So, really, why is this something that needs to happen right away? Is it something that we need to look at more so? Or is it another one of those things where we just need to slash it because it's costing us too much money? And I know I hear the argument on how that affects people in their pocket, right? People, if you're out there, you're working hard, you say, you know, I work hard every single day, I go out, I pay my taxes, and I'm struggling to get by. Yet these people who come from other countries, they are getting a free ticket. And I don't know if that's true or not, but I know I hear the argument. And then the other side would say, hey, you know, they came here for a reason. They didn't come here for sunshine and laughter. They came here so they could send money back to their family, so their family could come over here and eventually start the process of becoming legal immigrants. Now the question becomes, why aren't they legal immigrants? Why is the process bogged down in such a way to not allow people to come in through the legal process? Whether you call them undocumented or documented or legal or illegal, it's the same meaning. And unfortunately, politics has taken this and twisted it around. Because if you're on the left-hand side, you're saying documented, undocumented. If you're on the right-hand side, you're saying legal, illegal. It all means the same thing. How about that? You know what? At some point in time, we have to say we have to stop being PC, politically correct, and we have to start focusing on the issues. We spend so much time talking about political correctness as opposed to talking about what the actual problem is. And we've talked about a couple of those issues here on the air. Why is it on welfare that you can't get off welfare? The system pushes you to stay on as opposed to getting off. Why is it that people who are working hard every single day are never able to get ahead and they don't have access to things like health care without paying a significant sum of money? Why is it that the wage gap continues to grow? These are all things that we need to talk about. And again, this is another political thing where the argument is over the jargon as opposed to actually solving the problem. So now the Trump administration comes in and says, you know what, we're going to slash this because it doesn't make sense. 690,000 people are going to be on their butts, and they face things like they're going to have to potentially leave their job, drop out of school, or get deported even. So the question becomes, do you think that this is okay? Do you think that this is representative of you? Because at the end of the day, and that's the only time I'm going to say that today, at the end of the day, well, that's the second time, so I broke my own rule already. You are the people who put these folks in office, right? And I get it. Campaigns are run by big money, and the average person who's working on a farm or working in a classroom or working anywhere else in this country who maybe has a $40,000, $50,000 a year job doesn't have the opportunity to represent the people, even though they may be the best representation possible. I get that. But you pick who represents you. How do we change it so now representatives represent the majority by their thoughts and ideals? Because one of the issues that a lot of people talk about is people who represent the body don't understand the body. And there's no clearer way than people who say that college is available to everybody. Call you live in 1480 WSAR. Good morning.
Good morning. How are you?
I'm doing great. How are you doing?
Good, good. Undocumented people, you just mentioned that they come here thinking that they're going to send money back to their families.
Yep.
So as long as they're being undocumented, they don't have a Social Security number, correct?
I think they get temporary, some type of temporary number now, but they don't have things like driver's licenses. And, you know, I actually experienced that firsthand. When I came home from Iraq, I had the ability to go see my friend in Georgia who was a police officer, and he brought me on a right seat ride. And there were so many people who he pulled over who had no documentation whatsoever. And the problem was there were so many people like that they would load up the jails if they just focused on that every single day.
Do they file taxes?
I don't know.
We don't know nothing.
Because ultimately, if they don't have a Social Security number, then the answer would be no.
That's what I'm trying to get at.
Right, and they would be...
So this making money over here, sending it back to their country, and not following the tax line that it's supposed to. It took my parents 10 years to bring us all from Brazil. 10 years to do all the paperwork and everything. Sometimes you have to obey the law. And once you get in here, you have to start following the law. So I'm really against people doing things against the law. I know you say you have to survive this and that, but if there's a law put up, you have to follow it. That's all I say.
Now, here's another thought, caller. What happens to those dreamers or those undocumented or illegal immigrants, whatever you want to call them?
Yep.
What happens to those folks who have children, who are born in America, who are now American citizens, right? Do they leave their kid behind because they're American citizens, or does their kid go with them and then be an undocumented person in that other country?
I would say the kid has to go back to where the parents came from.
But if you're born in America, then you're an American citizen who has the God-given right to...
You're only an American citizen when you swear on the flag like I did.
That's not true at all. If you're
All
born...
right,
if you're born in America, then that makes you an American citizen. And somebody who comes here as a dreamer or an undocumented or an illegal who has a child in the United States of America, that child is an American citizen at that point in time. So what happens to those folks?
Parents should have thought about it when they did that. That's all I say. Have a great day.
You too, caller. And caller, you're live on 1480 WSAR. Good morning.
Good morning, Rick. How are you, sir?
Not bad. How are you doing?
Good. Just a side question for you. Do you have a brother or a father also named Rick?
Yes.
You do. Your father? Is that your father?
Yes.
Was he ever like a DJ at one time?
Yes.
He was. Okay. All right. My brother knew your dad. So
Oh, no kidding.
I figured you don't hear too many Catholic services around, especially with Rick. You know, what are the chances?
You got it. You got it.
Regarding the topic, the people will use Mexico because that seems to be the biggest place people come from that, you know, raises this discussion.
Right. And in 2012, 71% of the people were from Mexico.
Well, people from Mexico that come here illegally instead of doing it the right way, first of all, it's not fair to the people who do it the right way and have to wait in line, wait years to become a citizen. Why should they just cut the line, basically, cut in front of all those people? If I was somebody doing it the right way, I'd be pissed off, okay? And if those people think it's okay to do that, to be illegal or quote, undocumented, now you were asking about the children that are born here and are American citizens. Well, if it's okay for them to be undocumented here, why don't we send those undocumented people back to their own country? And we're not splitting up families. They can take their U.S.-born children with them, and then their children will now be undocumented residents living in Mexico.
So here's a question for you, caller.
If it's okay to do it, let the children be undocumented back in the parents' own country.
So here's a question for you, caller. And you know, if you've never listened to the show or watched the show, you know that I argue both sides of the argument to make sure that everybody makes a fair point. So, caller, what descent do you come from? What ethnic background do you come from?
What ethnic background?
Yeah,
French, Canadian French.
All right, so
my
imagine
grandparents came from Canada.
All right,
and they did it legally.
All right, so imagine that your parents come legally from France, okay? And then they do something along the lines of, and they're here on a green card until they can get their legal documentation to make them American citizens, okay? They have you, or they have your parents here, and your parents become American citizens. Then something happens where they have to get deported. So now you have your grandparents and you have your parents. So if we'll say for instance you are somebody from France, you're here on a green card, you're here completely legally, and you have a child who's an American citizen. Then you do something that causes you to get deported. Do you think your child should go with you? Because your child is an American citizen at that point in time.
Are we referring to somebody that has a green card and is here illegally, or people that sneak over the border?
I'd say both cases, because people get deported on both sides, right? So if people are here legally and they get deported for whatever reason, does their child go with them who's an American citizen?
Well, I think they should, and if the child needs to be pissed off, they can be pissed off at the parents because it's the parents' fault, not the child's. So if they need to lay blame and point their finger, let them point at their own parents and say, well, the parents taught them the wrong way.
Caller, thank you so much. You made some very fair points.
Thank you.
Have a great day. Caller, you're live on 1480 WSAR. Good morning.
Good morning, Rick. I just think that public housing should not be the new version of the Plymouth Rock. I made it. I've got my public housing. It should be a beginning to getting your own housing. And I think that the government, in view of not having a wall or any kind of filtering process, people just come over here. It's up to the government to heavily fund the cities to expand housing, to accommodate, put some roofs over the head of these people, whether they're illegal or not, until they make a decision on tightening up immigration.
Okay. And
my opinion is everybody has a right to live here, but they should be living here legally. And since they're not, and we're not doing anything about it, we really got to get the government involved, federal government, in helping the mayors in these cities to build the housing that's necessary to accommodate the indigenous people as well as our newcomers. And I don't think it has anything to do with the children being born here or anything like that. I just think it's common sense.
Well, caller, one thing that's said often, I say it on the air a lot too, is common sense isn't common. That being said, everybody is also entitled to their own opinion. So I appreciate your opinion. I think you made some good points. Thank you so much for your call. Have a great day.
Thank you, Rick. Bye now.
Bye. Call your live on 1480 WSAR. Good morning.
Good morning.
How you doing today?
Not bad, not bad. Actually, I would like to touch on Richard. I would like to touch on the subject of the immigration.
Sure.
I believe that's a tough topic because there's a lot of different views.
And you know what? That's what we do here on Brain Drain. We talk about the topics that people are afraid to talk about.
Well, I think it's not. What I look at is a little bit different than most of the people in the view. I mean, this is a system that allowed people to be here undocumented or illegal, however they prefer. The way I look at it is that's something that we've done. There's people here for 10, 15 years living on those conditions. So I personally think that they earn in a certain way their ways. I believe that what I think that could be done to resolve the issue is on the federal level, have individuals to come up and create a new system where it makes very hard to survive if you come back on a pattern that it is not approval, it's illegal to come in. Where, here if you hire someone that's undocumented, well, they pay a fine, but depending how long they've been working, they're probably paying a very small wage, where the fine is not enough. I believe that if they change that to jail time as well for anyone that passes the months, if they come in with a visa for 3 months, they are responsible for them to go back there. But the most important one, that something probably individuals are forgetting, is a lot of the Mexicans that come here to this country, going to different states to work on the farms, where creates a lower price on the goods that we all buy at the supermarket. Now, I understand to create something like this is very complex, but these are the countries that they have a pattern for those individuals, that they're looking for workforce for other countries to be able to, like Switzerland, you earn your citizenship or your documents to be able to work here by doing working visas for 6 months and have those employers responsible for medical, for food, for everything. So they pay less, but we know where they are. We know who they are. And I believe after have a plan, and again, I don't know how would they go, but sometimes they can take for other countries that have more experience than the United States on immigrations because they're older countries. And at that point, when they have that established, then at that point, do an amnesty and don't make it free. And at that point, you will see that after we have something in place to avoid 2 years later because this is what's happening with United States. There's a president that do an amnesty, and that's a pattern. So
Caller.
people say, well, if I do this, I'm going to become a citizen. So that allowance enables them to try the life. And I agree with you. If there's kids born in here, the United States. Now,
caller, I'm bringing up an opposing point, and the thing about that is, everybody has an entitlement to an opinion. The thing is I just challenge them just a little bit to make sure that they're coming from the right place. But caller, thank you so much for your points. I really, really appreciate it because you're actually proposing solutions, and you don't hear that often. So thank you so much.
You're welcome.
Have a great day.
You too.
Thanks. Call you live on 1480 WSAR. Good morning.
Hi, good morning.
How you doing today?
I'm doing great. Thank you for picking my call.
Sure.
I have a contribution to the discussion. For the kids that were born here, by law, they're already citizens.
Yep, exactly.
So having them leave the country will be us breaking the law, breaking our own law, because they are citizens.
I think that's a fair point, caller.
Yeah, and for their parents, we know that citizens has the right to file for their parents. So if we truly want to solve the problem, I think we can find a middle line where children that are old enough, like over 18, to file for their parents, will be given the right to file for their parents, even though they were here legally before. And those that are not old enough to file for their parents, I think the country could be very, very fair and humane to the parents by allowing them to be here to take care of the children. But then we have to find a way of securing the border, not by building the wall, but I'll leave that to our lawmakers to figure out what to do in regards to that. But we'll be breaking the law by sending the kids out of the country because their parents were here illegally. And if their parents are here and if they've not broken any law, well, for being here illegally, we'll assume they've broken the law. But if that's the only quote unquote crime that they committed, and they don't have any other crime against them, I think we could walk away for citizenship for them. That's my own contribution.
Caller, thank you so much for your contribution to the conversation. Have a great day.
You too, thank you.
Thank you. This color is absolutely absurd. We let them come into this country thinking they're going to follow our rules and leave when they're supposed to. No, we don't allow them. They do it, and their families hide them. That's it. And then somebody else says, we need to regulate the flow of money, not the flow of people's lives. Sure, we should have protections against known criminals, and we need better ways to pursue and enforce against criminal activity, but immigration is a natural human activity. My only concern with the DMC is the wording of the question on the ballot. Yes, personally, I don't trust the government with an open checkbook funding of this. Okay. Another one is... everyone in this country comes from an immigrant background, plain and simple. An immigrant background, plain and simple. Everyone needs to succeed. Just do things by the law and the right way, like all the immigrants who immigrated here and had to do the things the right way and follow the rules. America shouldn't be given a free ticket to anyone. It's a no-brainer. But here's the question. The question is what happens to those people once they're currently here? Because specifically dreamers, right? And again, I'm not picking a side on this. I'm just proposing the argument against what's being said. That way we can make sure we're thinking about this fully. Instead of picking a side, whether it be left or right, we talk about the issue at hand, and then we come up with the best decision that we possibly can. Because, you know what? Politicians want you to stay on the left. They want you to stay on the right. They don't want you to come up with a free thought opinion, because if that happens, that's how you create new parties, that's how you create new divisions in your party. But at the end of the day, we should be thinking for ourselves. And the best way to do that is by having conversations, not filtering conversations based on what we like and what we don't like. Listen to every point. So to your point, the question that we have to ask ourselves is, the thing about Dreamers in the DACA Act is these kids came here as kids. Now They're under the age of 31. They haven't been convicted of a felony. They're following the rules. They're either currently in school or graduated, and they may even be serving in the military, and they may get deported at this point in time. Call you live on 1480 WSAR. Good morning.
How you doing? The United States is not the only country in the world that is a first world country. There are many other countries that individuals can go to. If they're here illegally, then I think that they must follow the rules. And I don't think it's fair that many generations before them have followed rules, have done paperwork, have waited years and years to become a citizen. And then you have others who just come in, cross the border, and they get services. And, it ties down public safety. It shortens, availability of housing. It puts a big strain on the community.
Well, to add to your point, caller, the other thing that it does is it increases the population above the current counted population.
Yes. So now you're accounting for services based on a certain population that you think you have, but now you have a greater population.
Right.
So you're not putting services where they need to be. But now you have children who are born here, who are citizens. If their parents take them, go to Canada or go to Europe or South America or something, they're still citizens. When they're 18, they can come back. But a caller earlier said that the parents should have kind of saw that coming or should have thought about that.
Now, caller, the one thing about that caller previously who said that they're American citizens and we'd be violating our own laws, he's actually right. The thing about that is by deporting, in essence, an American citizen, we're taking away their God-given right of being an American citizen.
You're not deporting them. You're not deporting them, okay? I think the parents are just taking them out of the country. That's not deporting them. You're deporting the parents, in essence, I guess the child, but you're not physically saying, hey, the child needs to go. The parents are just taking their child with them.
Okay.
So I don't think it's deporting the child. And again, the United States is not the only country in the world that is thriving economically.
And a lot of these other countries accept people from other countries too. And I don't want it to sound like America is the only country who's dealing with an immigration issue. There's multiple countries, multiple developed countries who are dealing with the same exact thing.
There are, and it's just real quick. It's getting out of control. People are coming to the United States. Back in the 20s and 30s, they were coming because they wanted to better themselves. They were contributing. Nowadays, it's people, I think, more so coming in to get the free services because they know that states like Massachusetts will hand them everything. And I don't know if it was on your show or a different show. Massachusetts gives out almost $45,000 in benefits.
That was on this show.
Okay, you have people who are struggling and working, and they're only making $25,000, $30,000. What is the benefit or the thrive to better yourself when society or the government is just giving everything out? I understand.
And caller, to stop you right there real quick, that one of the issues is it's the two political party system, right? So the Democrats are trying to keep people in a place where they're going to be complicit with the actions that they create, meaning making them poorer, or the Republicans are trying to make people wealthier so they can give them more money so they can get reelected. Meanwhile, the middle class is getting squeezed out, and there's no better example of that than the wage gap and the welfare system, right? Because the welfare system, if you get off welfare, you're going to take a pay cut. How does that help people get off welfare? Doesn't make sense.
Exactly.
But, caller, you made some very good points. And just like everybody else, I'm going to challenge those points a little bit because I want to make sure that they're coming from a good place. I think it's important that we have a robust discussion, and you did a great job, caller.
All right, have a great day.
Thank you so much. Have a great day. Caller, you're live on 1480 WSAR. Good morning.
Hey, good morning, Rich.
How you doing?
I'm doing okay. There's one, in my whole discussion, there's only one point I'm going to agree with the conservatives on.
Sure.
And that's the word is not undocumented is illegal.
Now, caller,
Yeah.
Before you continue, and this is part of the problem I've had, and we've had these conversations before, one of the issues that I have is people point to the conservatives as that's their argument, and people point to the liberals and say that that's their argument. How about we just have the argument as people, instead of pointing the finger at and painting a broad brush?
Well, I don't agree with you, because that is reality, whether I like it or not, or whether you like it or not.
But individuality...
I'm sure you will agree with me that Trump got elected because of a certain base that was very conservative.
But he also got elected based on a liberal base, because there are people who aren't voting for Hillary Clinton based on what they heard, but they voted for Donald Trump based on his celebrity status. And that's the way...
Well, that's a pretty poor reason to vote for somebody.
And I've also said on this station that if the Democrats can find somebody like George Clooney, it looks like Oprah might be the front runner for them, who's a celebrity either equal or higher status, Donald Trump might lose. But that's the only way he's going to lose.
But you know what? That's the way I feel.
Caller, thank you so much for your point. Have a great day.
Hey, wait a minute.
What's up?
Wait a minute. Look. You look at DACA. One thing that drives me crazy about people who talk about law and order and constitutions that we're willing to ignore them when it suits us. We should be ashamed of ourselves if we're willing to take somebody who's served in our military and throw them out of the country.
Caller, I think you make a very, very valid point.
Did you get to see any of the thing at the White House yesterday?
And, caller, I'm actually going to hold you on that point because the lines are lit up, and I want to give everybody the opportunity. I appreciate the call.
You don't like it, do you?
No. I listen.
Yeah, that's okay.
Caller, have a great day. And, if you've called this show, I'm not afraid to talk about anything, but I'm trying to provide everybody with the courtesy to have the opportunity to talk. Call you live on 1480 WSAR. Good morning.
Hey, good morning.
How you doing?
Hey, the only time I get ticked off is when someone cuts the line.
Right, and you know what? And you can say this, Cole. You've been listening to the show for a while. You've been listening to other shows. That's something I don't do.
You don't? Good. Well, you give the guy courtesy, right? If the line opens up next on the next side, you say, "Go ahead, you're before me," right?
Right. So I
don't
try
ask for my documentation.
Well, because ultimately, at the end of the day, I think it's important that we are courteous to each other.
Here's the fact: 2011, 340 companies were fined. Okay.
Okay.
And one was the fishing industry, $90. Or $90. I think it said $90. I'm not too sure.
You sure it wasn't $90K?
There's no K. This says 90. I don't know. All the way from 90 to 350 grand.
Okay.
That's what it says.
Okay.
So, they just got a tax cut.
Well, you know what? And the tax reform.
And Trump, he the visa, work visas,
And regardless of how you feel about the tax reform, I look at it like the tax reform is a win for Republicans.
This is such an old argument, man. And, human rights are being violated, but who cares? Because you cut the line. Listen, if I came from a country where it was turmoil, you think I'm going to bring my kid back?
Right.
What kind of parent would I be?
So you're talking about folks on refugee status, and you know what? That's
Absolutely.
A fair point. And you know what? Other countries are dealing with exactly the same thing. Countries in Europe.
I'll be dead and buried, and someone with, hey, listen, again, the fishing industry. Go to New Bedford. They have all fake documentation. Some of them.
Caller,
okay?
Thank you so much for your points. Thank you so much. You made some very great points. Have a great day.
I try.
Call you live on 1480 WSAR. Good morning.
Hi, good morning, man. I have a couple comments about Durfee.
I'm sorry, what was that?
May I make a couple of comments about Durfee?
You know what? We're switching the topic to talk about local politics literally after the next break, so you can call in then, caller. Have a great day. Call you live on 1480 WSAR. Good morning.
Morning, Rick.
How you doing?
Good. You ever watch This Old House?
Yes.
You ever see him put the microphone to the guy doing the sheetrock?
I'm sorry. One more time.
Like,
I didn't hear you clearly on that.
No. You said you watched the show.
Yes, I didn't hear your question.
Take for instance Tommy Silva.
Well, the question is I didn't hear your question. Can you repeat it, please?
No, I'm getting to it.
All right.
If you watch This Old House, you have Tommy Silva. He's the carpenter.
Sure.
If you've got a guy in back of him that's sheetrogging, why don't they ever put the microphone to him?
Right. I think that's a fair point, caller.
Yeah, you know why?
Because they may or may not speak English.
Yeah, and they could be illegal, and
Right.
they could be getting paid under minimum wage.
So here's another thing, caller. There's plenty of people who don't speak English who are American citizens.
Yeah, what's your point?
So somebody could be a completely legal citizen who's standing behind him who doesn't speak English, and that would be okay.
How can you not speak English and be a citizen of the United States? How did you pass the test?
Because you don't have to speak English in order to be a citizen of the United States. The United States doesn't have a declared language.
It's American.
So American is in English.
We won that battle. We beat England.
No, it's one of the countries that doesn't have a declared language is America, and America doesn't have English as its declared language, and that's one of the reasons why.
It does.
No, it doesn't.
Everybody in the United States speaks English.
No, they don't.
If you came from another country, yeah, you speak that language.
Caller, you know what? I grew up in a family from Portugal, and my grandfather, as long as I was alive and until he passed away, didn't speak English.
And he was born here.
He was born in another country. But the point
Yeah,
was,
that's what I said.
he was an American citizen, and he was perfectly okay just speaking Portuguese because the language of America is not English. Even though more people in America speak English than anything else, it is not the declared language of America.
So what would you say we're going to speak here?
Whatever people decide to speak.
Oh, that makes no sense at all.
Call it that's what the rule is. I'm just telling you what the rule is. The language of America has not been declared to be English. Just so if you go to Canada, the languages of Canada that have been declared to be the languages of Canada,
multiple languages in Canada.
So it's English and French that are the declared languages of Canada. In America, we do not have one, and a prime example is an American country called Puerto Rico, where a majority of the people speak Spanish. And you know what? They are all American citizens born in America. And guess what? They speak Spanish.
Right. That's why I say you're in Fall River now. Speak Spanish.
Caller, thank you so much for your call. Have a great day. Call you live on 1480 WSA. Good morning.
Yeah, Rich, I just have a problem here. Well, all these, whether they're illegals or whatever, they all have the opportunity to study, take the test, and become an American citizen, correct?
You know, and it's one of these things where the process is so long. I think that's part of the problem.
I don't care how long the process is. If you're in this country, you were here, you came because your country was devastated. You've been here for 18 years. You've had 18 years to become an American citizen, and now they're going to supposedly, possibly deport some people. Well, you know what? If it's in 18 months or it's in 6 months, get the book, study, take the exam. If you're from Fall River, you can go down on a battleship and become a citizen of this country. That's what I want people to do. I'm not saying throw everybody out, but damn it, take the time to become an American citizen if you're from another country. It's not a big deal.
You make
they're going to get thrown out of here. Become an American citizen.
You make a very, very valid point, caller. Thank you so much for your points. I appreciate it. Have a great day. Call you live on 1480 WSAR. Good morning.
Hi, Rick. How you doing?
Not bad. How are you doing?
All right. I work in a facility where I work with Spanish-speaking people, and at times it becomes I'm Portuguese, but it's a difference. And I'm trying to understand them and trying to speak with them. So I said to the person, I says, isn't there where you live some studies to learn English to help you out a little bit, just to learn just the basics? They don't even want to do it, though. They don't even want to take the time to go and do it. It almost seems like I have to learn Spanish to, make it work. And it should be the other way around. But when I don't want to come out like, am I being racist? I mean, I don't know. I don't want to. It's just, is that what it's becoming? I don't understand it. I'm trying to make it work. Right. And, even the kids I see around the mother and father, they're only speaking Spanish.
Right.
And I wonder how the school is when these kids go to school and they only know the Spanish, that language, whatever it may be, because that's all they hear at home.
Now, caller,
how does the school deal with that?
Here's the answer, caller. The answer is, we elect people to office every single day. or every year at least. And one of the things that you can do is you can start telling those people in a loud voice by getting your friends together and saying, hey, we think that the language of the United States should be this, or we think that the language of the United States should be that. But you know what? That's been absent since the inception of the country. So I hear what you're saying, caller. I hear you, and it's difficult for me.
I was brought up Portuguese in Fall River, and my parents, they try to learn. They would know enough just to get by, to say a few things, and I just don't. It's the barrier. It's hard. It's very difficult, and it gets frustrating at times.
Caller,
you
know what? And I've been there before. I know exactly what you're talking about, and I can appreciate the sentiments that you're making because you're right. It's difficult to speak to somebody who's speaking a different language. But at this point in time in America, they're not doing anything wrong. So is it difficult? Yes. Should the incentive be to kind of try to understand each other? Yes, we should try to do that every single day. But that's not just on one side. I think both sides. I think we should be trying to understand other people better while they're also trying to understand us. And we call you live on 1480 WSAR. And before we go to it, we're going to be talking about what's happening here locally. And we're going to be talking about what's happening and why the school has met with such animosity. So what say you, caller? Caller, you there?
Hello?
Yes, how you doing, caller?
Am I on?
You're on, caller.
Oh, my gosh. Good morning. I certainly believe that everybody should learn English. Not an elderly person. When they come here, they cannot learn the language. I came to this country 3 weeks before I turned 25. I'm a native of St. Michael. I became a citizen of the United States 3 years later. I worked 48 hours a week, walking to work, walking home, and walking to Watson School twice a week. And I could never be in a country that I could not speak English. It's not easy at 25 years old learning and working 48 hours a week and learn the language. But I certainly agree that everybody should learn how to speak English.
Caller, thank you so much for your points. I think you make a fair point. And obviously you know it from experience. Have a great day.
You're not kidding. Thank you.
Thank you. And, real quick, I just want to explain the situation, something that happened locally here in Fall River, Massachusetts. So we have this person who sits on the city council who's been there for a bunch of years. He's been city council president and stuff like that. Now, this guy is arguing for a cost of living adjustment for the city council when city workers don't even get a cost of living adjustment. And think about that for a second. Think of how self-serving you have to be just to be able to do that. Now, he's holding up the process of giving kids access to a great education because he simply wants to win. And he holds these petty arguments and he holds the council hostage for his own gain. It's scary that somebody like this is currently in there. And I'm talking about Steve Camara. So not only are we dealing with Durfee High School, the new Durfee High School that's being built, being held up, but today, you know what happened? They had a water main burst. Gallons and gallons and gallons of water flooded Durfee High School. Kids aren't in school today because the school is in such deplorable condition. And you know what? This guy is still arguing that they shouldn't have a new school. Let's see what you think. Call you live on 1480 WSAR. Good morning.
Good morning, Richard Capsaris. This is Mary Jo Oliveira.
How you doing?
Good. Yourself?
I'm doing great.
Rich, I want you to know, for all the immigrants come this country and at such age, it's not easy to learn English. But when you're 55 years old, you're in America more than 5 years, 15 years, you can go learning Portuguese, the American laws, and you can go for application, go to Boston to immigration after you call, you have your fingerprint done, and you can take your American citizens and your own language. Long you have a translator who she's American citizen or he's American citizen, he has his passport like to witness. I am here, I'm translate for somebody else because I already did this for a lot of people. You're 55 years old, you now learn the language, you want to register vote, you want to be American citizen, you have all the right to be American citizen. It takes the citizenship and your own language, Portuguese, long you have a has communication with all over different countries. And in my case was Portuguese. So you go take your American citizen laws in Portuguese with the translator translate and in English. And let me tell you something else about that. Most of the times the judge who judge to know how to speak the language you translate, because the last person I went, he asked her a question in English and I translate for her, and she answered wrong and I answer right, and the judge told me she's not what she said. You cover for her. This is not work over here. Let her to learn and learn the laws in your own language, but say it right.
Caller, thank you so much for your call. I think you make some very good points. I really, really appreciate it because you have some personal experience behind it. Have a great day.
You too.
Thank you. Call you live on 1480 WSAR. Good morning.
Hey, good morning.
How you doing?
I would just like to say about the, I'm not going to point any fingers at anyone.
Sure.
I want to talk about the parliamentary procedure, the objection vote.
Sure.
Normally, all it does is put off the inevitable. That's it, no matter who makes it.
Now, do you feel that the
anywhere else? But
do you feel that the objection
original vote was?
Do you feel that the objection vote is obstruction?
I'm not going to say it's obstruction. It's a parliamentary move. That's all.
Actually, the parliamentary rule is object to consideration, which would then be followed by 2/3 vote. The objection vote that happens here in Fall River, Massachusetts, is an anomaly.
Well, that's your opinion.
It's not my opinion. And caller, that's not my opinion. You can't find that happen anywhere else.
I'm going to make a couple of comments here about how I feel about it.
Sure.
40 years of having fire drills, 40 years of maintenance, and then I hear on the news this morning that no one knew where the shut-off valve was. Something's wrong. That's all I have to say about that.
Caller, I think you make a fair point. Have a great day. We're going to take one more caller before the break. Good morning, caller. How you doing?
Oh, Rick, does he ever make a good point, doesn't he, huh? Monday morning they learn about it, who was watching over the weekend. But let me get to far more important material relative to the school, all right?
Sure.
As they say in politics, and you know it and I know it, timing is everything. Right. Here we are discussing the school last night at the city council meeting, and bingo, there goes the entire school, really, when you think about it. Computers, I mean, it's a horrible situation. So here's the deal. If there was ever a time when it was more important to be discussing the local issue in this city, it is right now. Because as you know and I know, apparently the deadline for a special election, or when it's going to be held, is March the 6th, which is less than 60 days, with everything that they have to do parliamentary-wise, if you will. Right. Now we have a councilor last night who, by virtue of the new charter, simply objects to what's going on, and boom, we have to hold it off until we have another special meeting. I don't know if this buffoon is going to do the same thing again, but I would say to Mr. Camara, he finished 9th in the running. That should be a message to him in and of itself. Number two, on a local issue, I do think, I don't want to hear Friday that we've got major flooding in this city from the 6th floor because we still have these snowbanks at corners blocking drains. If ever there was a potential monumental problem in this city, it's going to occur on Friday with apparently 2.5 to 3 inches of rain forecast for our area. But to close it off relative to the school situation, I guess now we have to bite the bullet. Yeah, I mean, it's going to cost, I would suspect, tens and tens of thousands of dollars when you can't even open windows in the old school to fix and remediate what has happened. And for a counselor to sit there and say, well, we really ought to be talking about the BMC Durfee School rather than the Durfee School, it's asinine. It's ridiculous. But then again, you have to consider the source from whence it comes.
Caller, thank you so much for your call.
Enjoy your day.
Have a great day. Rhode Island. Caller, you're live on 1480 WSAR. What say you?
Good morning.
Morning. How you doing?
All right. Listen, that's Steve Camara. He wants a cost of living raise. We seniors, for 2 years, I never got a raise in my Social Security. and he wants that, and he doesn't even pay his taxes. Come on now, this guy is a jerk.
Caller, I think it's a fair point, because not only is nobody else in city government getting a cost of living adjustment, but people who he represents aren't getting cost of living adjustments that are appropriate as well.
No, because it's been 2 years now that we never got any, because they put the Medicare up so we don't get no raise.
It's
2
tough.
years, and we got to live on what we get. And I own a house, I pay my taxes, and I'm 89 years old, so, and he can't even pay his taxes.
Caller, thank you for being a great citizen. Thank you for being a good resident. And thank you for calling into the show.
You're welcome.
Have a great day.
Bye.
Caller, you're live on 1480 WSAR. Good morning.
Good morning, Richard. How are you?
Not bad. How are you doing?
Good, thank you. Listen, I don't know for sure, but what I saw on television kind of irks me is the fact that that's a 6-inch sprinkler valve or a sprinkler pipe. And if that's the case, it's supposed to have a monitor on that so that when you lose your pressure, it automatically sends a signal to the fire department indicating that the sprinkler system has let go or there's a head that's off. Now, for 30,000 gallons, so this is what we heard on television, for 30,000 gallons to be running that long, evidently, it's not monitored, and that's a full deficiency of the entire building. All commercial buildings have to have it monitored. Post valves, hydrants, everything could be monitored.
Well, caller, you know firsthand that the city sets regulations that they expect businesses to follow, but they don't even follow themselves. Look at the condition that firefighters are living in right now.
Well, that's true. That's true. And there was a firefighter at the time when the news came on at 5 o'clock this morning where he gave the strong indication that it was a sprinkler riser. So, therefore, somebody's got to know where these shutoffs are. If nobody else knew, then the fire department would know because they're supposed to have a lock box, a Knox box, rather, so they can get into the building and check and do whatever they're supposed to do. So there's a lot of pie on somebody's face this morning,
caller.
Number one. And plus, I always say the reason why Camara get in because of by mistake.
Caller, thank you so much for your points. Have a great day.
Have a good one.
Caller, you're live at 1480 WSAR. Good morning.
Hey, how you doing today?
Not bad. How are you doing?
Good. I think this thing's a big mess. Somebody's got to go down for this because I used to work in King Philip Mill, ran the boilers, and knew all where every shutoff was in the whole building. And not just that building, the other two buildings. And I only worked there 5 years. Now, we got guys that worked at this school for how many years? Or an engineer or whoever. And no alarms went off. Like that last guy said, when those fire suppression systems spring a leak or go off, the pressure automatically drops. The balls go down inside the valves and sets the alarm off. They go directly to the fire department.
Yep. Now it's an issue if that's not working.
I'm going to tell you something right now. A 6-inch pipe, depending on how long it ran, it was more than 30,000 gallons. A lot more than 30,000 gallons.
Caller, thank you so much for your points because I think you make some very fair ones. And that's the good thing about being on 1480 WSAR is people call in and they make very fair points. Whether you agree or disagree, they're fair. And I appreciate that, caller.
Yep. Okay, bye-bye.
Have a great day. While one city councilor is holding this building hostage by simply being an obstructionist. And you know what? You want to talk about the definition of obstruction. It's making sure because you don't get your way, something doesn't happen and not taking a vote. That is exactly what this is. He could have tabled it for a later date. He could have just simply voted no. Instead, he said, you know what? I'm not going to allow any other councilor to talk about this because I feel we shouldn't be talking about it. So I object. Think about that for a second. First of all, should a city councilor have that kind of unilateral power? And I'd argue that the Cushing's rules that they're governed by doesn't allow it to happen. And the charter refers to an objection, but you can't overrule your bylaws. So the objection that they're referring to is the object to consideration, which then would be followed by 2/3 vote. So They've done it the same way forever, but, the city council here in Fall River, Massachusetts has done a lot of the things the same way forever to be proven wrong in the future. And we saw that no more than we did the past 2 years. So let's dive into the conversation. How do you think that this school and the closure of this school is going to impact us? When do you think it's going to open up? We have 15 classrooms that are have water damage. There are 15 classrooms. Water was running out the door, I've heard. And that, when you think about that, that's a lot of water. And we have to get even beyond the mold that's going to cause and the damage that's caused to computers, because I guess it was in the science section. The computers that are damaged and the books that are damaged. Think about this. What is that going to do to the air quality, right? These kids are expected to go back to school. And what kind of air quality? How much is it going to cost to remediate that? Meanwhile, you have a city councilor who's holding up the process of building a new school. Why would that ever be okay? We're going to go right to the lines. Call you live on 1480 WSAR. Good morning.
Good morning.
Morning. How you doing?
Pretty good. When are you going to have Steve Kamara as a guest on your show?
Actually, I've had the policy that we are not inviting any local.
Oh, that's right.
Local or state. Local delegation officials here on the show.
Mm-hmm.
But I think you're going to be hearing really soon some of your federal delegation and some federal elected officials here on this show.
Is that your rule, or is that a rule of the station?
So every show is a little bit different, and that's the way that we're going with this show, caller.
Okay. I think it would be interesting anyway. Have you ever thought of that, or entertain the fantasy, I guess?
Caller, and it's sad because I get what you're trying to do. You're trying to delegitimize the sanctity of this show. But at the end of the day, what we have here is we have the ability to talk to various folks that have an impact on our area. But because of the fact that we feel a certain way, I'm talking like the average citizen, right? So the average citizen doesn't have the ability to show their distaste towards a city councilor because the city councilor might not listen. But what we're doing here is we're trying to spread the word about what's really happening. And at the end of the day, we have one city councilor who is self-serving. There's no way around it. When you're arguing for a cost of living for yourself, when you've dodged a draft. Now, we have to remember this. This guy is a draft dodger and tried to justify it saying he was a war resistor. This guy has shown a lack of spine his entire adult life and tried to justify it by saying he's one way or another. You know what? The guy doesn't even deserve to have a conversation here. Because, in my opinion, there are people who are fighting and dying right now. And this guy is only looking out for himself. And there's no better indication of that than the benefits that he's received from this city, the backdoor deals that he's created for himself. There's no clearer indication that he's probably the most self-serving person on all of city government. Think about that. That is crazy. And the sad part about local politics, regardless of where you are, is it's an easy place for self-serving people to hide. Why? Because the average person who's paying attention to local politics is in their 70s, in their 80s, in their 60s. The average age that local politicians are appealing to are people who are elderly. And they're told whatever they want to hear, unfortunately. So the people who could actually have an impact in this, people who are millennials, people who are Generation X, people who are baby boomers, they aren't really paying attention. Why? Because they think government has abandoned them. And there's no better indication of government abandoning the people than this one city councilor, Stephen Kamara. It's crazy, because he's holding up the process of building a new Durfee high school. Something that's needed, something that's necessary. Why? Because he doesn't get it his exact way. Well, government's built on compromise. Compromise is something that is absolutely necessary in all forms of government. And unfortunately, what's happened is at the federal level, people are saying, well, if I don't get my way, I'm not getting it at all. And it's kind of trickled down to the local level. And we have somebody like Steve who sits over in a corner and says, well, if I don't get my way, I'm going to vote no. And there's an even better indication of that. The city council presidency vote, right? The only person who voted for Steve Camara for city council president was Steve Camara. Why? Because he wanted a cost of living adjustment. Who does a cost of living adjustment for the city council impact? Tell me. Does that help the residents who the city council serves? No. Does that help the employees that the city council is supposed to oversee the budget for, and the residents who the city council is supposed to oversee the budget? No. It adds the burden to it. So who is directly impacted by a cost of living adjustment for the city council? I'll tell you who. Steve Camara and every other city councilor. And you know what? I'm proud of the city council for not electing somebody like that, city council president, looking out for their wallet instead of looking out for instead of looking out for the residents. Right there, the city council proved that, at least in this case, they were doing something good for the people. Call you live at 1480 WSAR. Good morning.
Good morning, Richard.
How you doing?
I'm okay, but it must be nice to have your own talk show that you can just malign people who aren't available to defend themselves.
And caller, it's funny because now what happens is he calls all his friends and have people call in.
No, he didn't call.
So caller, thank you so much. And it's sad because we should be able to have these conversations because he's a politician. If I was saying this about Donald Trump right now, if I were saying this about a congressman right now, a senator right now, you know what would happen? Nobody would say anything. But because he's a local politician, they're, for some reason, held to a different standard. That's unacceptable. That's never going to happen on this show. You're listening to Brain Drain on 1480 WSAR.